Last month, the Illinois legislature gutted a bill dealing with DCFS and replaced the language in there, changing election law mid-election year. And within 3 days, Governor J.B. Pritzker had enacted that bill. He called it an ethics bill. But what it really did is it blocked individuals from being slated for the November election if they did not run in the March primary. Well, that law is blocked right now, and a county judge could declare that the law is not right and continue to block the law after a hearing yesterday while candidates went and slated at the Illinois State Board of Elections. I'm Greg Bishop. It's Bishop on Air. Thanks for hanging out with me each and every weekday morning. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I do this on my own time, but if you follow me at X or on Facebook, you'll know that I post a lot of articles from thecentersquare.com, which is where I'm the associate editor. It's a nonprofit newswire service, and I encourage you to get the newsletter. I encourage you to donate as well as a nonprofit. We do what we can to be on the ground and report on what's going on with state government and your tax dollars. But here's the story yesterday. Ruling on Illinois candidate slating prohibition could come this week. So background, last month, the legislature passed that bill and the governor enacted it. And it says that you cannot slate a candidate in the November election if they didn't run in the primary. So if you look back at the primary, Illinois actually had more than half of the state house seats that were up for grabs. More than half of them were not really competitive. The party was already chosen. So if it was a Democrat incumbent, most cases, there wasn't anybody challenging the Democrat opponent in the Democrat primary. And there was no Republican candidate at all in the primary. So voters went to the polls, and if they were selected a Republican candidate, there was no Republican candidate on the ballot for their jurisdiction. So this happened in more than half of the state house and Senate seats where the party was already determined. Well, if there was nobody on the primary for the Republicans, then the Republican Party locally could go ahead and say, you know what, we're going to slate somebody for the November election. This has been the case for a long time. Some people don't like it. It's been talked about changing it, and sure, maybe it's ripe for change. But to change it in the middle of an election cycle, that was the question that was ultimately raised and challenged in the courts, where last month a circuit court judge in Sangamon County, where the state government seat is, they put an injunction on the law, saying that it's not enforceable while the case plays out, a preliminary injunction, an initial temporary blocking of the law. And they set the case to be heard June 3rd. So the case was heard yesterday. I talked with Jeffery Schwab from the Liberty Justice Center, who is the counsel on the case, and he argued in court yesterday. Here's a bit of a rundown of what he had to portray how court went.
Okay, well, today before the court were three different motions. Our motion for summary judgment and for permanent injunction. The AG's motion for summary judgment, for cross motion for summary judgment, and intervener Speaker Welch's motion to dismiss. And the court first took up the motion to dismiss. That was argued, and the court entered a judgment or an order denying the motion to dismiss. And then she heard argument on the cross motions for summary judgment and had some questions for each side. And then she said that she would issue a written decision in the next couple of days. So we should get a written decision by the judge sometime this week, we think. And we'll see how that goes. Obviously, she didn't say one way or the other how she's going to rule, but it did sound like she would rule this week. So we will know sometime this week what her decision is, and we will have that in writing.
So again, a little bit of a breakdown of some of the motions here, more from Jeffery Schwab from Liberty Justice Center.
Yes, it would either because it's cross motions for summary judgment, it would either be a summary judgment motion essentially denying our relief and ruling in favor of of the defendants, or a motion granting our motion for summary judgment and finding that we're able to prove our case. And what we asked for specifically was declaratory relief that the act that we're challenging, the provisions of the act as applied to the plaintiffs in this 2024 election is unconstitutional under Article 3, Section 1, which is the right to vote, which includes the right to ballot access. And then an injunction, a permanent injunction that would prohibit enforcing those provisions of the act against our plaintiffs for this 2024 election.
So Schwab, of course, giving us a bit of an understanding here of how the motions could come down. But why is this important?
Well, I think the important thing about this case is that what happened here was the legislature passed this law in the middle of the election. So it changed in the middle of the process. So there were, in our case, we have 14 plaintiffs. They were nominated by the Republican Party to fill these as slated candidates in these districts, and they got the nomination. They went through the process of starting to get signatures, but before they could file the petition on the due date, which is today, the legislature changed the law and essentially pulled the carpet out from under them, saying, well, this process is no longer valid, so you can't use it. Problem with that, obviously, is that they relied on the process, and changing it obviously benefits whoever they were running against, because this would guarantee there are no Republican candidates on the ballot. It would be almost impossible for them to become independent candidates or third-party candidates. One, because if they voted in the Republican primary or a Republican primary, then they're prohibited from doing that in this election. And two, because the deadline's 3 weeks from today, and the number of signatures that they would have to get is significantly more than the number of signatures they'd have to get to be the Republican candidate. And so it's virtually impossible for them to do that. And so it's likely that no third-party candidate, no independent candidate will run. So effectively, this will guarantee that there's only one person on the ballot for these elections. And in general, if nobody wants to run, that's fine. But the legislature and the governor can't change the law in the middle of the process to ensure that there won't be any candidates on the Republican side in this case, but on either side. And that's also why, by the way, that we didn't bring a challenge to the law in general, because in the future, everybody will know that this process isn't available. And that may be a good thing. I know that this historically has been used by Speaker Madigan as a way to sort of tilt the balance in his party's favor, and so I can see why people don't like it. But and that's fine, and they can change the law, but they can't take it away in the middle of the process.
So Schwab, again, talking about the lawsuit that was heard yesterday in Sangamon County with the state defending it and the plaintiff saying, no, it's unconstitutional. A judge going to make a determination in the days ahead. Flashing back to before Governor J.B. Pritzker enacted this, this is what he had to say he thought about the bill. Again, that gutted a child welfare bill and replaced it with a mid-year election change measure.
Well, as I understand that bill, and again, it just got put through, I think, yesterday, and I haven't seen the details of it. But as I understand, this is actually an ethics bill. It really does make sure that we don't have backroom deals to put people on the ballot and run as a result of some small group of people in a smoke-filled room making the choice. So I think, to me, more transparency is better.
So again, he talked about this being an ethics bill, and it's a bill that others said is election interference. But Schwab, he says that bottom line, this is a question about fairness.
No, I mean, I think that this is a pretty straightforward case, and I think everybody kind of will recognize that it's just in the interest of fairness that the government shouldn't be allowed to change the rules in an election in the middle of the process. It's fine if they want to change future rules, if they want to make things a little more fair or better, or they think that this process is unfair, that's fine. But once the process starts, you can't change it and take it away from people. And that's exactly what they did here. And they didn't need to do that. They could have just said, they could have passed it. They said, this is a bad thing. We don't like slating. And after this election, it won't be used anymore. and we wouldn't have had to bring this lawsuit.
So next steps, if the judge rules one way or the other, Schwab, he says he can't say whether or not she's going to grant their request or the state's request, but he could see this move on to the next steps.
Right. Now, obviously, we don't know what the judge is going to do, so I think that it's safe to say if she does rule against us, that we will almost certainly appeal. But I can't say what if we get a ruling in our favor, what the attorney general or the intervener might do. So obviously we'll have to wait and see what the judge does first.
Well, that's because time is of the essence. The election's November 5th. Candidates just filed their slating yesterday. And if you want to find the entire list, you can go to my X account and follow me there. You could see as of yesterday, I think yesterday afternoon or so, filed were a whole host of candidates facing off with Democrats if they make the ballot. So go and find to see if your district is one of these districts. Again, go to thecentersquare.com and you'll see the entire list of candidates that are filing to get on the ballot. So a little bit of an update for you on that measure here with Bishop on Air. Greatly appreciate you guys being here. And be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, all right? Make it happen.